This is major news here. A Federal Reserve appointee is being fired by Donald Trump. He came out with a Truth Social letter last night and said, Lisa Cook, you're cooked. Those are my words, not his. But she is basically cooked. He said that, we can't have someone on the Federal Reserve Board that is being accused of having said her mortgage was her primary residence when I guess it wasn't her primary residence. But those are allegations at this point. So nothing has yet been proven. Nonetheless, he made it pretty darn clear. Here's the headline in none other than the New York Post. They're saying Trump is firing Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook. She is, she's kind of a big deal because she is the first Black woman to have that position. She was nominated in 2022. She was confirmed by the Senate. Biden, this was one of his big signature moves because in the DEI craze, you had to have everybody check every single box. And this woman, apparently, she checked a few, but she may have checked a few too many boxes on the mortgage application too. We don't know that. I mean, this is just what's being reported. So Trump said he's ousting her. And a lot of people are concerned that this is because he wants a Federal Reserve that is, shall we say, a little bit more lenient in that they are not going to be jacking up rates. They're going to be lowering rates, thereby making money more accessible. There's an argument to be made for it. I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't believe in printing money. You know that. However, I'm also recognizing the reality that a lot of people are trapped in homes because mortgage rates are too high. And so you have all these baby boomers that, for example, can't sell their homes that they want to get out of. You've got people that can't move to new jobs because they can't sell their homes or buy a new home because of mortgage rates. And so a lot of people are saying, wait a second, how is it that she maybe was getting a lower mortgage rate when I can't on my mortgage, right? Like, because I'm actually playing by the rules. So this is a big deal. This was the letter, and we'll get back into the letter. But before I do, I want to show you the left's reaction because, they're just, well, here's, by the way, Roger Stone's tweet on, he found like the most unflattering picture ever of poor Lisa Cook, but he's pointing out that she said her home was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that was her principal legal residence, and she was getting a state tax break and a lower mortgage and insurance rate. And then 2 weeks later, she said her home outside of Atlanta was her principal legal residence, and she was also getting a state tax break and a lower mortgage rate. And he's saying, look, this was insurance fraud, and this is what the president's going with, and this is why he's saying, you know what, you're out of here. And Pulte was the one to first discover all this, but the left is losing it. They're flipping out. Of course, I would say this, like, if these allegations are true, why the heck is she on the board of the Federal Reserve? Anyway, let's go first to MSNBC, where they have a former CNBC contributor on speaking about this issue.
Ron, even if President Trump can't fire Lisa Cook, if that's where this all lands, has the president sent a message to the rest of the Board of Governors?
I think we're getting past the point of message sending, and we are at risk now of the Fed losing its independence because there are a variety of different things that are going to happen over the course of the next several months, including Jay Powell's departure in May of 2026. We had a Fed governor resign who's going to be replaced by Mr. Mirren, who is currently in the White House. And if President Trump gets a majority of folks who support his position on the board, they will do potentially what he would like them to do, which is to lower interest rates irrespective of economic conditions. And then you start running into serious trouble. There's a paper that was published last year by the National Bureau of Economic Research that analyzes political interference at the Fed from 1933 to 2016 and shows, particularly during the Nixon era and a few other instances, that when this political interference begins, it pushes the price level up by as much as 8%, and it may last for some time. So if people hated inflation before, they're going to hate it a lot more down the road.
Things could get worse and worse. What are you hearing from the private sector? Are you hearing anything from executives or investors about this move, this pressure?
I've heard from some officials who understand that this process can be manipulated in a wide variety of ways. For instance, if the president were to get a majority on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, they could move to fire district presidents as well. who might not be inclined to do what the president wants to do. And so this packing of the Fed, or gerrymandering the Fed, if you will, is something that everybody's becoming increasingly worried about, because it will have adverse consequences for policymaking decisions and on the economy overall.
All right. Well, look, the president really doesn't like the direction of the Fed right now. He doesn't like the direction that it's been taking. He does want lower rates, as we've discussed, and I've written about it, 76 Research. Go over there today if you can, 76research.com. Use my code word dollar, DOLLAR. Then you get the 76 report for $1 a month for the first 2 months. Anyway, the point just being that, he wants to see this loosen up and make credit more available for everyone. I would go back to this, what Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, was saying today on CNBC. It really doesn't make sense to have somebody on the board of the Federal Reserve Governors if, in fact, she's guilty of this, right?
But the issue is a federal government, a governor of the Federal Reserve, literally signs her name and commits mortgage fraud, right? It's alleged that she's committed mortgage fraud, and she says, I'm not going anywhere. Well, the crook always says, I'm not going anywhere. And why would anybody defend that? The real question should be, did she commit mortgage fraud, yes or no? And if you did commit mortgage fraud, please get out of the federal government, get out of the seat of the governor of the Federal Reserve, and go away. You don't deserve to be there if you've committed mortgage fraud. Right? It's black and white. If you've committed mortgage fraud, you shouldn't be a governor of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, like, duh. I mean, and this is what everybody was saying. Like, how is it fair if she, in fact, is getting a lower rate on her mortgage because she's got some kind of special deal where she's getting away with calling everything a primary residence? Now, look, hey, benefit of the doubt, maybe something else was going on. Maybe she had some kind of overlapping in timing. I don't know. But let me show you the documents. This is certainly suspicious. Apparently, she signed both documents, both Atlanta, with her Atlanta condo, and then her Michigan residence as primary residences. And again, back to Roger Stone here saying, you have one in Ann Arbor, Michigan as a principal legal residence. Then you have one in Atlanta as a principal legal residence. I mean, that's causing some concern. You understand, guys, right? Why that would actually enable you to get a lower mortgage rate. And that's because if it's your legal principal residence, the thinking is, well, you can always get a lower rate on that, because if someone is running into trouble, they're always going to pay their permanent residence first. The vacation home, you could walk away from, but you are more likely to pay the mortgage on your permanent residence. And so if somebody says everything's their permanent residence, well, then you're kind of scamming the system. So this is what she is alleged to have done. And Donald Trump's like, I'm not having it. Here's the letter that he sent out. He put it out on Truth Social. I mean, getting fired by tweet here. We've seen that before. Dear Governor Cook, pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, as amended, you are hereby removed of your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve effective immediately. The Federal Reserve Act provides that you may be removed at my direction for cause. See 12 U.S.C. 242. I have determined that there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15th, 2025 from Mr. William Pulte. He's the director of the FHFA. That's a federal housing finance agency, to Ms. Pamela Bondi, who runs the DOJ, right? Basically, you have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements. And a result of that, you're done, right? That this is actually a detailed criminal referral. So he doesn't want somebody who's being investigated for criminal reasons on the board of the Federal Reserve. Now, look, you got Larry Summers out there, who used to be Treasury Secretary and used to run the National Council of Economic Advisors for Obama. And so he's really lefty, and he's like, oh my gosh, how dare he do this? But at the same time, if in fact this, it looks to be as though she's got some problems there. In most jobs, in most gigs, you actually would lose your job as a result of that, because as Howard said, you want somebody with these allegations. They will have to be proven out in court. I would say this: she's not taking this laying down. She, despite the signatures, etc., she's out there hiring Abby Lowell. Yeah, Abby Lowell. Name sound familiar? Ring a bell at all? Because Letitia James. She hired Abby Lowell as well. So Lisa Cook has hired Letitia James's lawyer, and she said she's not going to step down. No way, no how. In fact, she came out with a statement saying President Trump reported to fire me for cause. This is a statement she made to Politico. So I'm reading from this. When no cause exists under the law and he has no authority to do so, I will not resign. I will continue to carry out my duties to help the American economy as I've been doing since 2022. And then Mr. Abby Lowell, who clocks in at a pretty penny, I wonder where all the money's coming from. Well, we know New York taxpayers are paying Letitia's legal bill, unless the GOP can do anything about it. But anyway, he writes, quote, President Trump has taken to social media to once again fire by tweet. Oh, this is not really a tweet, right? I mean, we don't really call it tweets anymore, Abby. Come on, get with the times. It's on X. And by the way, he put it out on Truth Social first. And once again, his reflex to bully is flawed and his demands lack any proper process, basis, or legal authority. Cook's attorney, Abby Lowell, said in a statement, we will take whatever actions are needed to prevent his attempted illegal action. So this is interesting. The Fed has no immediate comment. So what happens now? Well, apparently she kind of, I guess, gets to stay in the gig and I guess gets to continue to vote on interest rates. I guess she's never going to vote for them to go down now, right? Even after we got more of a dovish tone at Jackson Hole just last week. Everybody was psyched because Powell actually sounded like, maybe he'd be slackening a bit on interest rates. Well, not this lady. Now this lady is going to double down no matter what because it's become this crazy political thing. So now you have to ask this question. You must ask this question. Who is next? Think about what's going on. Okay, guys? Think about all the people. Well, we got them right here. Okay, think about all the people. Here's the list. We've got alleged mortgage fraud scandals, Adam Schiff for his primary residence in Maryland and in California. You've got Letitia James for her primary residences in New York and Virginia, as well as, her dad apparently is signing on as her husband. She said that she was her dad's wife. Lovely. Lisa Cook, primary residences, Georgia and Michigan. Like, what is the deal? Like, who does this? I'm sort of amazed. Like, you're in Washington, like you're living in a fishbowl, for goodness sakes, and you decide it's a good idea to save a few points on the mortgage by saying everything's your primary residence. If this is in fact the case, I don't think so. This is very, very, very strange. So now it's going to heat up. As I said, Abby Lowell says she's not taking it sitting down. She said she's not going anywhere. The president's like, hey, I have the authority, okay? This is my executive power. As the President of the United States, I have a solemn duty to ensure that the laws of the U.S. are faithfully executed, and I have determined that faithfully executing the law requires your immediate removal from office, lady. You're going, you're gone, Don't stop to look and say bye on your way out. He wants you out of there. So now the question becomes, who is next? Who else is going to get ensnared in these mortgage fraud allegations? And I think we know some of the answers. I mean, one of the obvious ones, of course, being Letitia James. This was her home in Virginia that she said apparently was her primary residence. And now we're being told, oh, no, that's just a clerical mistake. That was on the power of attorney. Forget about the fact that she is attorney and she should know better. And so she's kind of facing a serious issue here. I mean, you can get up to 30 years, I believe, for this alleged criminal fraud.
James tried to prosecute the now President Trump in his second term. I just want to read a couple things. Criminal referral, then a response from James's office here in New York. James, for both properties listed above, this deals with real estate now, going back decades, really, appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. All right. Her office responded by saying the AG James is focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers. Specialist administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. The issue here is what property she owned and whether or not she owned it, whether or not she was married, and whether or not her father was involved in all this. Without going into the weeds of the details, this stems from a case in 1983 and the year 2000. That's a minimum of 25 years. Someone had to do some digging to find this. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Bill, the most I know about the case, I just learned from you. I saw it on breaking news this morning. This case was sent to us from Bill Pulte. We have not seen it. I inquired right before I walked out here. No one in my office has read it yet. We haven't looked at it. Of course, we'll be reviewing it. You just told me more than I've heard about it so far.
Hey, we aim to please with some breaking news of our own. Indeed. All right. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
So that was a few months ago, right? As this news all came out, but I just wanted to bring you down memory lane here to keep you up to speed. It is kind of strange. I mean, the father-daughter thing, right? With father-daughter mortgage. This is the Times Union reporting that he asked his daughter, then a few years out of school, this is the father apparently, to help by allowing him to add her name to the mortgage application. This is according to the lawyer, Mr. Fancy Pants, Abby Lowell, who's also representing now Lisa Cook, who got knocked off the Federal Reserve, although she's really kind of still there. We'll see what happens. Mr. James filled out the mortgage materials wherein he described their relationship as being spouses, and purchased the home without his daughter's involvement. So she's thrown her father under the bus, for goodness sakes. It's daddy's fault, you know? For goodness sakes, you're 24 years old. You're educated. Why the heck aren't you looking over your dad's mortgage documents when you're on them, girl? I don't buy it. I think it's all a big giant lie. However, James, then 24 and a college graduate, signed the notarized mortgage. Okay, so she signed it too. She doesn't even look at what she's signing, along with her father. On one of the documents, 3 pages that listed her as his wife. All right. Oh my goodness. I just like what? To save a few points. Well, I guess in this case, maybe her dad couldn't have gotten the mortgage because if he didn't have a full-time job and she did, I don't know. I don't know the circumstances of it. Frankly, I don't even want to know. I can't even believe that we're having to talk about this because I can't believe that people in DC are doing this. And you know what? Pulte's going to have a freaking field day because he's just going through. He's like, do. Larry Summers was trying to say, oh, well, this is quite common. I'm sorry. Like, in what world is this common? In what world? I mean, this is mortgage fraud. Like you can't dismiss this. Thank you very much. Under no circumstances should you be dismissing it. And it's just as Howard Lutnick said, why the heck do you want someone on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors who's been accused of fraud? Just like, why the heck would you ever want somebody as your attorney general who's been accused of mortgage fraud? Or frankly, as your senator from California that may have been doing the same darn thing. So Pulte's been very, very busy. Here's another article, I believe this one from the New York Post. He's talking about, of course, that Virginia home that James had. It reaffirmed that this would be her primary residence. Apparently the mortgage documents, despite the fact that, you know, she's the attorney general from New York. What is she doing? She says, oh, just clerical error. But again, he points out what I told you. Primary residence mortgages receive more favorable loan terms, lower interest rates, and then secondary residence mortgages do. And lenders view secondary residence mortgages as significantly riskier, as a residence mortgages are significantly riskier because a borrower is more likely rather to continue paying off a primary residence. Again, you know, we've been through all that. Letitia says, no, I didn't do anything. Abby Lowell is her attorney saying she didn't do anything, but I want you to go back and listen to this. I've played this before. This is from MSNBC. Oh, actually not MSNBC. This is from a podcast that someone on MSNBC who literally is a dead ringer for Rachel Maddow. I'm telling you, you can get rid of Rachel and you're going to have no problem because you have someone named Chris Hayes, right? Who like looks and talks and sounds just like Rachel Maddow. So Chris Hayes has a podcast and Letitia went on there thinking it was friendly fire territory, right? But she couldn't answer this question. She refused to answer this question. She said, we're not going to get into this now. Just that I didn't do anything wrong. Kind of like Lisa Cook. I didn't do anything wrong. Abby must be advising everybody to say the exact same darn thing. Watch.
I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way. But I am 100% confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me, and that it is nothing more than a revenge tour, and that Donald Trump just ultimately got to the J's, and I was next.
The key allegation again, it sounds like you don't want to address a resident.
Wait a second. Wait. I have to just stop this for a minute. This is Chris Hayes. Who could really, you know what? Like, the MSNBC lights must be really good, and the makeup artist must be really good, because he actually looks better, if I can say that, on MSNBC set. Anyway, I digress, but listen to this, because she's looking off camera, almost like looking over at her lawyer, when he says, hey, I get that you don't want to address these allegations right now. Okay, so let's go back. Watch.
Put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wait, we got to go back further.
I don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to.
Even further.
And I was next.
Okay.
The key allegation, again, it sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken, for that property, that they say you falsely represented yourself as a resident of Virginia, and that was essentially amounts to mortgage fraud since you're a resident of New York. What is your response to that?
It's baseless. Everybody knows I'm a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn. And again, we will respond at the appropriate time in the appropriate way to these baseless allegations. And some media outlets like the Daily News over the weekend has indicated as much.
That's all you want to say.
That's all that I'm going to say.
And of course, he's not going to ask more. Ask more ever. Okay, guys, we're having a camera issue. Anyway, Luke, you're so funny. I'm too hot. I don't know. Maybe the studio is too hot. We're having kind of a heat wave in New England right now. I'm back and I'm in the seat. Listen, Adam Schiff is the next one to be in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Schiff, he's getting called out, and I think he's facing all kinds of trouble, and he doesn't quite know what to do because, well, Shifty Schiff is being, called out for the exact same stuff. You cannot have two primary residences. In his case, he's the representative from California, and he has a primary residence there, but apparently also has a primary residence in Maryland. Well, that's not really going to fly. I'll tell you, Bill Pulte, he's going hunting and he's finding all kinds of stuff. So Adam Schiff was asked about this on NBC, and Shifty Schiff started to squirm when the question came up because, well, he doesn't really have an answer. I didn't say, oh, no, it's just all politics. Watch.
Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. Now, the government mortgage company, Fannie Mae, says you're, quote, engaged in a sustained pattern of possible occupancy misrepresentation on several loans. Are these allegations true? How do you respond to them?
They're patently false. And the president knows it, in the housing agency, president's person, Pulte, knows it. He's essentially doing the president's bidding against me, against Letitia James, against this person on the Federal Reserve. Mortgage is their new weapon to go after their critics. But I've been very open about my residency, both in California and in Maryland, with my constituents and with the lenders. So there's no there there. But the common denominator is they will manufacture anything to go after their critics, after members of Congress to try to silence them, after John Bolton, after people in the Federal Reserve, after generals, after former presidents. They're investigating Comey and Clapper, the Obamas, the Clintons. Basically, it's free reign with a corrupt leadership at the Justice Department.
I'm telling you, I'm not taking anything that guy says seriously. Are you? I mean, he can defend himself until he's blue in the face. I still remember what he did, and I still remember all the lies he told, and that's never going to go away. And so I'm never going to trust him. I'm never going to trust any of these people. This is the entire problem with the Democrat Party right now. I mean, I'm not the only one. You guys aren't the only ones. You just look at all of America right now. Nobody is registering as Democrats. In fact, the Democrats are freaking out because there's a new analysis that came out in the New York Times. Go back and watch yesterday's show. We went through it in depth. Kind of in the first 20% of the show there, we went into all that, and they've discovered that they have numbers that are way lower. Like every single blue district is going red. And there's another story in today's New York Times about the Electoral College that's going, woo, red, red, red. Like it's hot fire red, okay? There's no Democrats left. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. I guess they're all dying off. And then you get a few crazy ones like Ma'am Dammy and AOC and Jasmine Crockett, and they're not going to get anywhere. So what's happened to the Democrat Party? They don't know. They're in a total crisis mode. They're having a meeting as we speak, trying to figure this out. And of course, they can't get out of their own freaking way. That's a New England expression, right? They just can't get out of their way because they've got all these stupid expressions that they use. Now they're telling each other not to use them. Anyway, I'll tell you, they've got to kind of figure this one out. Nobody can really figure it out for them.